This is the story of a man who made politics sound like poetry. Politician in the day, prophet at night, as he often made predictions about the future of Nigeria's government. Chuba Okadigbo, one you could call the philosopher in a war zone, a man too smart to be controlled and too bold to survive Nigerian politics untouched. Born on December 17, 1941, he earned his first PhD in philosophy and another PhD in political science from the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. By the 1970s, he was already making waves as an academic both at home and abroad. But what made him stand out wasn't his education alone, it was how he used it. With most Nigerian politicians, it is always about mastering the art of flattery or silence. But as for Chuba Okadigbo, he was busy sharpening words like weapons. His oratory skills were legendary. He quoted Aristotle in the same breath as he blasted corrupt politicians, sometimes mixing English and Igbo, just to make sure his message cut deep. The man wasn't speaking to please, he was speaking to shake the system. In the late 70s and early 80s, he served as political advisor to President Shehu Shagari. That's where he learned firsthand how the gears of Nigerian power worked and how often they crushed anyone who got in the way. But Chuba wasn't afraid. In fact, he seemed to enjoy poking the bear. After the military took over, many politicians went underground or fled. But when democracy returned in 1999, Chuba Okadigbo came back swinging. Elected as a senator representing Anambra North under the People's Democratic Party, he immediately positioned himself as a force to be reckoned with. Not with money, but with sheer presence. And presence, Chuba Okadigbo had it in abundance. He moved like a monarch and spoke like a professor. His style was flamboyant, and his words could cause commotion. But underneath all that flair was a man who knew the constitution of his country better than most, and who genuinely believed that Nigerians deserved better. The tragedy is that he was playing with fire in a house soaked in gasoline. By challenging the system, exposing its hypocrisies, and refusing to be a pawn, Chuba Okadigbo made powerful enemies. But at this point in his story, he did not really care. The philosopher had entered the arena, and he came with flames. As noted earlier, in 1999, when democracy returned after years of military interregnum, Chuba was elected as senator for Anambra North. It wasn't long before he aimed higher and won. He became the president of the Nigerian Senate, the third most powerful man in the country. Unlike many who had come before, Chuba did not treat the position like a ceremonial throne. He treated it like a pulpit, a place to speak uncomfortable truths, a place to challenge a system built on yesa and shadowy deals. He called out corruption. He pushed for legislative independence. He refused to let the Senate become a rubber stamp for the executive arm of government. Chuba Okadigbo was not a new man in the Nigerian Senate, having previously been in the Senate in 1993 before the truncation of their term by General Sani Abacha. But Nigerian politics does not smile kindly on rebels. Almost immediately, the heat intensified. It has been widely speculated that even his colleagues in the Senate, threatened by his rising influence and sharp tongue, began plotting behind closed doors against him. The presidency under Olusegun Obasanjo reportedly viewed him as too outspoken, too dangerous, and too unwilling to play ball. In Nigerian politics, refusing to play ball is like painting a target on your back. Eventually, a series of allegations were leveled against him, mostly centered on financial mismanagement and misconduct. Were the charges real or fabricated? But either way, the Senate moved to impeach him. In August 2000, Chuba Okadigbo was removed as president of the Nigerian Senate in what many describe as political ambush. It was swift, clinical, brutal, and maybe even personal. But here is the thing. Even after his fall, he did not grovel. He did not beg. Instead, he stood tall, famously stating at one point that he was 6 feet tall, yet they wanted to make him walk like a dwarf. The mere fact that Chuba Okadigbo was trying to redefine the Senate was what made him a threat. The establishment wanted silence, but there was nothing quiet about Chuba. His removal was a warning to anyone who dared to speak loudly. But for many young Nigerians watching at the time, Chuba Okadigbo became proof that intelligence and integrity could still shake the pillars of power, even if only for a moment. To understand Chuba Okadigbo's rise and fall, you have to understand the terrain he operated in. Nigerian politics isn't a straight road. It is a maze of ambition, betrayal, loyalty, and shifting alliances. And for Chuba, he knew how to navigate it until the game turned against him. In the early years of Nigeria's Fourth Republic, power was being reshuffled like a deck of cards. The presidency was in the hands of Olusegun Obasanjo, a retired military general. Meanwhile, the National Assembly was full of new faces, many still learning how to flex their political muscles. He had been special advisor to President Shehu Shagari in the early 80s and held a PhD in philosophy and another one in political science, and had also served as senator in 1993. In other words, he was no rookie. He understood how governments work. He understood people, and most of all, he understood the dangerous dance between the legislative and executive arms of power. He aligned himself with certain factions, but he never became anyone's puppet. That independence earned him both respect and fear. His supporters, mostly young senators and reformers, saw him as a breath of fresh air, someone who could challenge the status quo, someone with the courage to speak truth to power. But his enemies, they were plenty. Some were fellow senators who felt overshadowed by him. Others were members of the executive arm who preferred a quieter, more obedient Senate president. And then there were the godfathers, the powerful political figures who pulled strings from behind the shadows. Chuba wasn't interested in being controlled, and that made him too dangerous a person. One of the most powerful enemies he reportedly made was President Olusegun Obasanjo himself. Their relationship was icy, with both men clashing repeatedly over issues of governance, accountability, and control. The final blow came when whispers of a, quote, plot against the presidency began circulating. Whether real or manufactured, the mere suspicion was enough to justify action. A panel was set up, accusations were thrown, the media was flooded with headlines, and just like that, the Senate turned on him. Chuba Okadigbo's political career would never fully recover, but his defiance during those moments, his refusal to kneel or play along, made him unforgettable till today. This wasn't a man who got lost in politics. This was a man who fought it to the end on his own terms. But how did he earn the nickname Oye of Oye, referring to his local government area in Anambra State? Simple. His unique personality and insightful thinking. His speeches were not just political talk. They were rich with references to literature, Igbo proverbs, and Latin sayings. This showed his strong academic background and led to his reputation as the philosopher of the Senate. In addition to being poetic, Okadigbo was prophetic. The man had a knack for predicting political events. Here is how. He warned that then President Olusegun Obasanjo would try to stay in power longer than allowed, even before the third term agenda became known. In 2002, he stated, quote, Buhari will define politics in the years ahead. Nigeria is lucky. We are lucky he did not join the PDP, end of quote. This prediction proved accurate when Muhammadu Buhari eventually became Nigeria's president. Okadigbo's blend of intelligence, powerful speeches, and political insights made him a memorable figure in Nigeria's political history till this day. But as for his personal life, much like his political career, was dynamic and saw its share of complexities. He was married multiple times and was a father to several children. His first marriage was to Miriam Ikejiani Clark, with whom he had 4 children before their divorce. He later married Juliet Nwokoye, a pediatrician, and they had 2 children before their marriage crashed. His most publicly recognized marriage was to Margaret Chuba Okadigbo, nee Ebo, a distinguished lawyer and politician in her own right, who would later serve as a senator representing Anambra North, the same constituency her late husband represented. Chuba's personal life, though not exhaustively detailed in public records as his political exploits, shows a man who, like many, navigated the challenges and joys of family alongside a demanding public career. When Chuba Okadigbo passed away in 2003, Nigeria lost a rare blend of intellect, courage, and charisma. Politically, Chuba Okadigbo's tenure as Senate President was brief but very impactful. He was removed under controversial circumstances, which many saw as political retaliation for his independence of thought and refusal to be a puppet. But in that short time, he left behind a blueprint, a vision of a legislature that could be bold, vibrant, and intellectually independent. Chuba was also a radical. When the plot to impeach him thickened and almost at its breaking point, Chuba took the mace of the Senate and traveled with it to his country home in Anambra in his bid to stall the impeachment. He was still impeached nonetheless from the office of President of the Nigerian Senate, but he remained in the Senate till the end of his 4-year tenure. Chuba Okadigbo died mysteriously on 25th December 2003 at the Federal Capital Territory at the age of 61. His death occurred a day after campaigning in Kano State. From Kano, he returned to Abuja where he died. He died owing to breathing difficulties. Some people questioned whether or not the tear gas used by security operatives during the rally in Kano was poisoned. His death marked the end of an era in intellectualism and politics in Nigeria. Chuba had a beautiful academic record. After graduating from the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. with a master's degree in political science, Chuba went further to acquire 2 doctorate degrees, one in philosophy and another in political science. Chuba Okadigbo became an assistant professor. Later, he became adjunct associate professor of philosophy at the University of the District of Columbia, adjunct assistant professor of politics at the Catholic University of America, his alma mater, and adjunct assistant professor of politics at Howard University in the United States of America. He accomplished all of these by the age of 34. Between 1975 to 1978, he became Director General of the Center for Interdisciplinary and Political Studies and a lecturer in philosophy at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He also became a professor of philosophy at Bigard Memorial Seminary, a Catholic Mission University in Enugu State. In politics, Chuba also represented the idea that politics doesn't have to be anti-intellectual. He proved that scholars could be statesmen, that knowledge could work confidently alongside power. In many ways, he was ahead of his time in how he carried himself, how he debated, and how he envisioned leadership. His name shall be remembered in the annals of Nigeria's political history for many more years to come. Thanks for watching this edition of Back in History, and do remember to subscribe to the channel or follow the page for regular notification on every new video. I am your friend and host Ekemi Nudim, wishing you the best of time as we continue to dig into the archives to recall the history of Africa. Also remember to turn on the notification bell so you never miss any new content. See you in the next video.